Hey guys, for today's video, I want to go over an interesting and instructive Scrabble pre-endgame that occurred in a recent online game played between two of my good friends, Kevin Burbridge and Eric Goldstein. The first pivotal position we're going to look at is the one on the screen right now. It's Kevin's turn. He's at a 6-point deficit, 303 to 309, and he's holding a very clunky and consonant-heavy rack of D, E, J, R, S, W, X. Now, this position is going to be more of a puzzle position than a deep analysis position because there is simply one play here that is light years better than any other play Kevin can make. It is super hard to see, so I'm going to give you guys an opportunity if you'd like to pause the video and see if you can come up with Kevin's standout best play here. For those of you who found it, congrats, very, very impressive stuff. It is an 11-letter word. It is an extension of trophies to extrophies, scoring a whopping 69 points. And while it does leave Kevin with the very clunky leave of DJRW, it's so many points that Kevin is actually guaranteed to win. You guys will see that there are 3 tiles left in the bag, so Kevin does empty the bag with this play. He will be drawing 3 tiles, leading to an endgame where both he and Eric have 7 tiles left on their racks. But Kevin takes a 63-point lead with this play, and it's not too hard to see that regardless of what Eric has on his final rack, there's going to be nowhere for him to bingo out, and there's going to be nowhere for him to score enough points despite the clunk left on Kevin's rack for him to make up his 63-point deficit. So extra fees is Kevin's standout best play, and it actually wins 100% of the time. There is no other play here that wins close to 100% of the time, and extra fees is of course a really, really hard word to see, let alone even know in the first place. Kevin, understandably, didn't come up with extra fees in this position, instead playing sex for 27 points from the S Industier. Extra fees aside, this looks like a pretty good play from Kevin. It scores well, gets rid of one of his 2 8-point tiles, namely his X, and also leaves 1 tile in the bag. Leaving 1 tile in the bag is a good thing for Kevin because it's going to leave Eric a lot of uncertainty. Eric is not going to be certain what Kevin's rack is, and he's also not going to be certain what tile he might draw after his next play. So that significantly complicates Eric's next turn. Now, extra fees does empty the bag, but like I said before, it scores so many points that even so, it guarantees Kevin the win. Now, if you're not going to find extra fees, there is no other play that scores nearly as many points, so not emptying the bag with a play like sex seems very reasonable. And now we get to the much more meaty position we're going to be analyzing in this video, Eric's turn following Kevin's play of sex. Eric is now trailing by 21 points, and facing a rack with 3 E's, an L, an N, an O, and an S. From Eric's perspective, there is still 1 tile in the bag, and he's looking at an unseen tile pool of D, E, J, K, R, R, S, W. Eric knows that 7 of these 8 tiles are on Kevin's rack, and 1 of these 8 tiles is in the bag. Where things get complicated for Eric is he, of course, has no idea what the 1 tile in the bag is, and that, as I mentioned before, was the main benefit behind Kevin's decision to not empty it on his previous play. So Eric has to be prepared for drawing any of these remaining 8 tiles after he makes a play. It's a tough position because the players have opposite problems. Eric's problem is that he has too many 1-point tiles. It's going to be very difficult for him to score a significant amount of points. Kevin's problem is that he has too many scoring tiles, and that with the game quickly drawing to a close, he might struggle to get rid of all of these scoring tiles before Eric plays out and catches him with a lot of them on his rack, earning a big bonus that could easily flip the game in Eric's favor. The 1 tile in particular that could be really hard for Kevin to play off is the 8-point J, assuming he has it. Remember, we know from Kevin's last rack that he does indeed have the J, but Eric doesn't know that. From Eric's perspective, the J could definitely be the 1 tile left in the bag. But if Kevin does indeed have the J, then it actually turns out, as hard as it is to believe, that Kevin is guaranteed to have 0 spots on this entire board where he can play it off. It doesn't matter what other tiles from this unseen pool Kevin has on his rack. Even if he has the E, even if he has the S, on this board as it currently stands, there is absolutely nowhere for Kevin to play the J. I know it's kind of surprising, but it is absolutely true. So what implications does that have for Eric's turn here? Well, the biggest thing to note is that if Eric makes a play that doesn't create a spot for the J, then assuming Kevin has the J, Kevin is going to get stuck with it. And if Kevin gets stuck with the J, then in almost all reasonable situations, Eric is going to win. because when all is said and done, Eric is going to get 16 bonus points for Kevin's unplayed J, and not only that, with Kevin stuck with the J, Eric doesn't even need to be in any hurry to play out. At some point, Kevin is going to have to keep passing, so Eric is going to be able to play off 1 or 2 tiles at a time to rack up as many points as he can. We've seen this play out in several other videos on my channel. So basically, any sort of reasonable play here for Eric that scores somewhat well, doesn't give Kevin a spot for his J, and doesn't give Kevin any very high scoring plays that don't involve the J, should win unless the J is in the bag. So any, like I said, sort of reasonable play here for Eric should win at least 7 out of 8 times. 7 out of 8 because there are 8 tiles unseen and 1 J, so 1 out of 8 times the J is in the bag. The other 7 out of 8 times it is not in the bag, and therefore it is on Kevin's rack, and by assumption in those situations, Eric is going to win. So really the question becomes, in this position, whether Eric can actually guarantee a win if he, Eric, also draws the J. Like I said multiple times, most reasonable plays here will win if Kevin has the J. The key is going to be making a play that not only wins when Kevin has the J, but also allows Eric to escape with a win when he draws the J. It turns out that there is only one such play for Eric in this position. There are a boatload of plays that win 7 out of 8 times for Eric. Dozens upon dozens of them. But there is a single play that wins 8 out of 8 times. And we will get to it, but for now I want to show you the play Eric made, and it is one of the boatload of plays that wins 7 out of 8 times. It is Lee's for 17 points under Dustier. And at first, you might be looking at the board and screaming, wait a minute, this is a terrible play. It gives Kevin a potential spot to play the J with Jail above Ale on the board. And that is true. This was probably not the most well thought out play, but it turns out that this does actually still win for Eric 7 out of 8 times, because Jail scores so little, and with basically anything Eric draws from the bag, he's going to be able to play out next turn and catch Kevin with a ton of unplayed tiles besides the J and hold on and win. For instance, if Eric draws the D, he's going to be threatening Dun and TE under trophies. If he draws the K, he's going to have Kino in the same spot. If Eric draws one of the 2 Rs, he's going to be threatening Reno and 2 in the same spot. If he draws the S, he'll be threatening Nose over there. And finally, if he draws the W, he's going to be threatening E now and YE down the O column. All of these plays, as I'll leave you guys to check, win easily after Kevin plays Jail. In the actual game, Eric drew the K, and like I mentioned before, after Kevin dropped his J with Jail, Eric went out with Kino, winning the game handily. Now, there's one final possibility. What if Eric draws the E? In that case, Eric is going to have E, E, and O, and won't actually be able to go out. But the problem for Kevin is after he plays Jail, he's going to be left with no vowels. And it's a little harder to see, so I'm going to go ahead and now walk through why Eric still holds on and wins in that situation. If Eric plays Lees and picks up the E, then as I mentioned before, Kevin is going to have no vowels. So after he plays Jail, then Eric can simply slow play and not worry about having to go out here because Kevin is not going to be doing much with his 6 consonants. So one fairly straightforward way to win here for Eric is just to play Aeon for 14, nearly catching him up, and Kevin can barely do anything here. His best play looks to be Sows for just 14 points, and at this point it's not hard to see because Kevin takes a 15-point lead with this play, but Eric is going to get 18 points from Kevin's unplayed DKRR. Eric just literally needs to go out anywhere with his E on this board and he wins easily. So we now know that Lees for Eric is going to win whenever he draws any of the 7 tiles besides the J. Now, before I jump into talking about why Eric loses after Lees if he himself draws the J, some of you might be wondering, why didn't Eric just play Lee in the same spot holding his S? Well, the reason is because this could allow Kevin to respond with Ors and Skew, scoring 41 points. And in that situation, even if Eric is able to go out or J-stick Kevin, Kevin might have enough of a lead that he's actually able to hold on and win. As it turns out, per the engine Macondo, Lee will actually lose for Eric if he draws the J and also the D, so Lee only wins 6 out of 8. That's why Eric does need to be careful not to give back any high-scoring plays to Kevin, even if they don't involve the J, because depending on how high scoring they are, Kevin might even be able to outrun a J-stick. So a heads-up decision by Eric here to spend his S for just one extra point to block Kevin's potential play of skew. Now, that being said, why is Lee's a loss for Eric if he draws the J? After all, Eric isn't going to be stuck with the J. He's going to have jail and also the ability to play something like Joe under the T in trophies. So what happens after Lee's and Eric draws the J? Well, the problem for Eric is that if he draws the J, he's not going to get stuck with it, but he's not going to win because he's actually down here. Kevin is up 4 points, and without the J to deal with, Kevin's going to be able to score enough points and get rid of enough tiles to outrun Eric's J plays. Kevin has a number of wins in this position, the best of which, according to the Macondo engine, is to play knees for 18 points through NEE on the board. After this, Eric responds with Joe for 22 as planned, tying the game, but now Kevin can just play 4 and Drew for 23 points, taking an insurmountable lead, because Eric can only go out with Jin for 4, and Kevin wins easily when all is said and done, 371 to 354. And like I said before, Kevin has many other options that win besides knees. So Eric is going to lose if he plays Lees and Kevin manages to dodge the J and Eric himself draws it. So going back to the original position, we know that Lees for Eric is not a bad play by any means. It wins 7 out of 8 times, along with many, many other options. However, it's not his best play. Like I said earlier, there is one and only one play in this position that guarantees Eric a win whether or not he draws the J. What is that play? In order to help find that play, let's think a little bit harder about what we learned from the analysis of Eric's actual play of Lees. Why exactly did Eric lose when he draws the J after Lees? Well, he didn't lose because he got J-stuck. He had multiple spots to play the J. He lost because he simply couldn't get enough points. Remember, Eric is still down 4 points after Lees, and it's going to be Kevin's turn. So Eric isn't going to need to just be able to play his J. He's going to need to be able to make something big happen with his J. And that something big could be one of two things. Thing number one would be a really high scoring play. We saw Joe for 22 was not going to cut it. If Eric could somehow set himself up for a big play, like maybe a 30, or ideally 40 plus point play with his J, that might do it. Option number 2 for Eric would be allowing himself to go out on his next turn if he drew the J. And he wouldn't necessarily have to score so many points if he went out, because the key would be, if Eric can go out on his next turn, then he's going to deprive Kevin of the opportunity to make 2 plays and score as well as he did with knees and Drew. And also, if Eric can go out, he's going to get extra bonus points from Kevin's unplayed tiles. So Eric needs to be thinking here, how can I make a play that not only doesn't give Kevin a J spot if he has the J, or give Kevin a high scoring play regardless of whether he has the J, but also guarantees Eric either a very high scoring J play or an outplay with the J. That needs to be our thought process in this position if we're Eric. Now, when Eric first sent me this position to analyze, my first instinct was, let's see if we can set up a big play. And the play I looked at for a while was a Noah's and Seal for 13 points. With the idea that if Eric draws the J, he's going to be setting up Joel through the L for a whopping 57 points. However, it's pretty clear that this isn't going to work, because Kevin is just going to be able to play Weld through the L, winning easily. Let me show you. If Eric goes for Seal in this position, then Kevin scores 36 points with Weld. And while Eric does still have Joe, as he did before, it's going to fall well short. Kevin is already up 22 points here because Weld scored so much. He can just play something like Sky for 16, and it's easy to see that Eric isn't going to be getting very much with his N, and Kevin is going to win easily. So Seal, interesting idea, but doesn't work. After looking for a while in different parts of the board, I concluded that there didn't seem to be a good way for Eric to set up a potentially large J play for himself in a way that Kevin couldn't easily block while scoring a lot of points himself. So then I started thinking more about Eric's second potential path to victory if he draws the J, playing off enough tiles in this position in a way that allows him to play out with his J on his next turn. This path seemed a little bit more promising. The first thing I thought of was, what if Eric can try to leave himself Joe or G as an outplay on his next turn? So I thought about E-nulls for 11 points next to the Y and Vinify. The idea being, if Eric draws the J, he's threatening G and TE on his next turn. So let's see what happens. The problem with Enals is that while it's tricky for Kevin to effectively block G, he doesn't have to. He can simply outrun it. If he just plays Skew and Us for 24 points, then G is not enough. Because Eric goes out for 22, he gets 8 more points from Kevin's unplayed DRR, and Kevin still wins by 4, 354 to 350. So Enals is a no-go in the original position. To keep an outplay of Joe, Eric would need to play off the tiles EELNS instead of ELNOS, and that just wasn't possible. So then I started thinking about, okay, what if Eric tries to leave himself a 4-letter outplay instead of a 3-letter outplay? And that's when the word Joel, Jole, which plays under TE, crossed my mind. So then I thought, alright, what if Eric, instead of playing Lees, where he played it, plays Scene? It's a very similar idea, but with a subtle difference. By keeping the L instead of the N, he ensures that he's not only threatening Joe, but threatening Joel to go out. And Scene also scores better than Enals, so maybe, after Scene, if Eric draws the J, he's going to be able to win. Let's check it out. Now, the outrunning technique doesn't work for Kevin. If he plays Skew, as he did in the line we just looked at with Enals, then Eric actually could play Jowl for 45 and win this way, but even more straightforward is just to go out with Joel, and this time Eric is the one who wins by 4, 358 to 354. So why does Eric win by 4 in this line, but lose by 4 in the Enals line? The main difference is that Scene scores 6 more points than Enals, and also Eric's outplay of Joel scores 2 more than his outplay of G in the Enals line. So those subtle differences make all the difference here in determining the final result. So, going back to the position after Eric plays Scene, Kevin has to try to block Joel. He cannot simply outscore it. And how does he go about blocking Joel? It's actually a lot harder than it looks. The problem for Kevin is he actually can't play any 2-letter word under the T. For instance, WE doesn't work because Eric just goes out with Joel and O down the B column, and similarly, DE doesn't work because of Joel and Ode, and RE doesn't work because of Joel and Or. So Kevin cannot block in this way. Kevin's best blocks would be either ER, making Re and Org between Trophies and Egal, or Re and Regal, which score 13 and 10 points respectively. Both of these plays block Eric from going out, but do allow Eric other plays with the J. So importantly, Kevin cannot completely J-stick Eric in this position. Let's take a look at each of these two options and see whether they get the job done for Kevin. Let's start with ER, Re, and Org. If Kevin plays ER there, Eric of course no longer has Joel, but he has a very clever idea of Jeer for 13 points. And this play threatens a 22-point outplay of Lo and Joe on Eric's next turn. And with DKRSW, no vowels, Kevin is going to be completely unable to stop this. So on Kevin's next turn, his best option is simply Need for 20 points. And now after Eric goes out for 22 and gets 12 more points from Kevin's unplayed RSW, Eric wins by 10, 373 to 363. So, going back a couple of turns, ER in this spot doesn't work for Kevin. It's going to lose to Jeer. So he needs to find another way to block Joel. The only remaining option we need to look at is Regal and Re. What happens after this? If Kevin plays Regal and Re, then the most obvious response for Eric is just to play Joel to the E Kevin provided for 19 points. If Eric does this, he takes a 5-point lead. But what's not great about this play is it gives Kevin, who is completely bereft of vowels, an O to play through, and he can use it to play Sword for 26 points, taking a 21-point lead. Eric's best outplay is the sneaky Re, Gal, and N for 11, and guess what? In this line, the game ends in a tie, 366 apiece after Eric gets 10 more points from Kevin's unplayed K. So does this mean that if Kevin finds his block of Regal and Re, that the game is going to end in a tie? No, because if we go back a couple of turns, Eric should not respond to Regal and Re with Joel for 19. Instead, he should play off his J in a way that doesn't give Kevin counterplay. And that way is to play Joe, Tor, and Re for 17 points, giving up 2 points on the scoreboard, but depriving Kevin of any vowels to play through. After Eric's play of Joe, Kevin's best option is going to be need for 20. But now, Eric can go out with foul for 7, and he's going to eke it out by 2, 362 to 360, after getting 12 points from Kevin's unplayed tiles. So it turns out that regardless of how Kevin responds after scene, if Eric draws the J, Kevin is lost. So scene is indeed an 8 out of 8 win for Eric. There is absolutely nothing else for Kevin to do. We've mentioned that Kevin cannot simply outrun Joel, and we've exhausted all of Kevin's viable blocks. Kevin is sunk in this position. Eric is going to win. So that right there establishes that scene for Eric in the original position wins even when he draws the dreaded J. Scene indeed wins 8 out of 8 times. I'm not going to go through formally all of the different lines where Eric draws a tile other than the J. I'll leave that to you guys as an exercise if you so please. It's very easy to see, though, that Eric is going to win easily if Kevin has the J. He doesn't even have a single J spot like he did after Eric's actual play of Lee's, because now there's no jail, right? Before, Eric made the word ale on the board, allowing Kevin to drop the J with jail. We saw in those lines, Kevin didn't even win when he could drop the J, and here that's not even an option for Kevin because AIS doesn't take a friend J. So Kevin's going to be J-stuck if he has the J. Again, I'm not going to go through all of the different draws in detail for Eric. It's very easy to see that Eric wins when he doesn't draw the J, and we just did the hard work to prove that Eric wins after scene when he does draw the J. So once again, scene, the only 8 out of 8 win for Eric in his original pre-endgame position. So what's the takeaway, guys, from this video? What can we learn from this position? I think the biggest thing we can learn here is a logical way of thinking that comes up pretty often in Scrabble positions. It comes up more often on the flip side when you're in a bad position. Usually when you're in a bad position, you need to take risks if you want any chance of winning the game. And what I always say is you have to assume you're going to draw well. Sometimes you have to make an opening even if you don't have a tile to use that opening. You have to just assume the best and assume you're going to draw that tile. If you don't make those kind of risky, aggressive plays, you're simply going to flounder on a closed board and lose. This is kind of the opposite. Here, Eric is in very good shape unless he draws the J. So he should assume the worst. He knows that if he makes any reasonable play, he's going to win if he doesn't draw the J. So he doesn't have to really worry too much about outcomes when he doesn't draw the J. He should instead focus on the worst outcome. So that, like I said, is the flip side of the logic of when you're down, you want to focus on the best outcomes. When you're up and you feel like you're going to win unless something goes wrong, focus on the situations where something can go wrong. What can you do to ensure that you win not only when things go right, but also when things go wrong? And in this case, for Eric, things going wrong is synonymous with Eric drawing the J. So Eric needs to think about how he can guarantee himself a win when he draws the J. And as such, he should assume. That's the key word here, guys. He should assume he's going to draw the J when he goes about this analysis. And if he assumes he draws the J, that simplifies things a little bit. Because, like we saw in the analysis of his actual play, once he draws the J, which again we're assuming is going to happen, he needs to either be able to score a ton or go out. And that's what eventually led us to find his play of Scene saving his play of Joel. Of course, we weren't even done there. We had to go through all of Kevin's possible responses and blocks. So the simplifying assumption was literally just a simplifying assumption. It was far from concrete proof of how to solve this pre-endgame. You still had to go through all the possibilities, but without that simplifying assumption, it would be very hard to know where to start. The idea of assuming Eric was going to draw the J, and as such, planning for an outplay when he presumably drew the J, was the key foothold for finding Scene, and I can't emphasize that point enough. So that's it for this video, guys. Shout out to Kevin and Eric on an awesome game here. Really hope you guys learned something. Let me know what you think of this position in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for all your support as always, and I will see you soon for the next one. Bye-bye.